Hello friends, how are you? 30-second Washington Quarter intro. Welcome back to Change Your Life. Today, we're diving into the fascinating world of Washington Quarter dollar coins, exploring their history, iconic design, collector value, and hidden treasures. We'll look at three intriguing dates: 1965, 1967, and 1968, all without mint marks. Could an ordinary-looking, dirty, discolored, or unusual Washington Quarter be worth far more than its face value? Stay tuned as we uncover. First coin: 1965 Washington Quarter, no mint mark, complete value and history script. Welcome back to Change Your Life. Today we are diving deep into one of the most fascinating Washington Quarters ever made, the 1965 Washington Quarter with no mint mark. At first glance, it may look like an ordinary 25-cent coin, perhaps dirty, scratched, dark, or strangely toned. But 1965 was a major turning point in American coinage, and that history is exactly what makes this date so interesting. Could a 1965 quarter really be worth thousands? In rare circumstances, yes, but not simply because it has no mint mark. So before you spend that old quarter, stay with me, because we are going to uncover what actually gives this coin value. The story begins with the history of American money. Washington quarters had been made from a silver alloy for many years. By the middle of the 1960s, changing economic conditions and the rising cost of silver created a major problem for the United States government. In 1965, regular Washington quarters changed from the traditional silver composition to copper-nickel clad. The familiar Washington portrait and eagle remained, but the metal had changed. That makes 1965 an important transition year. Now let us clear up one of the biggest myths. A 1965 Washington quarter with no mint mark is not automatically a rare error. The no mint mark issue was normally produced at the Philadelphia Mint, so the missing letter is expected. Never assume a normal 1965 quarter is worth thousands or millions simply because there is no mint mark. Most ordinary circulated examples are worth little more than their face value, while better preserved coins and genuine varieties or errors can bring more. The real excitement comes from a very different possibility: a genuine 1965 quarter struck on an older silver planchet. Because the United States was changing from silver to clad coinage, a small number of transitional mistakes are especially interesting to collectors. A genuine silver planchet 1965 quarter is not valuable because it merely looks silver. It is valuable because the coin would represent a genuine minting error from a historic change in American coin production. That difference matters. If you think you have one, start with the edge. A normal clad quarter has a copper-colored line visible between its outer layers. A silver quarter has a solid silver-colored edge without that copper stripe. Weight is another important clue. A normal clad quarter is about 5.67 grams, while the traditional silver quarter planchet is about 6.25 grams. That difference is only a first check, not proof of authenticity. If your coin looks genuinely unusual, professional examination is the smart next step. Now we reach the question everyone wants answered. What could a 1965 Washington quarter be worth today? The answer depends completely on the individual coin. A normal circulated no mint mark quarter can remain close to face value. A high-grade example can bring more, especially when it has strong surfaces and preservation. A genuine and authenticated transitional silver error can be worth thousands of dollars. Documented auction records show that exceptional 1965 Washington quarters have reached significant prices, including a PCGS recorded auction result of $12,650 for a high-grade 1965 quarter. That does not mean every 1965 quarter is worth $12,650. It means exceptional coins can be dramatically different from ordinary ones. What about a dirty or unusual colored coin? Be careful, do not clean it with chemicals, polish, vinegar, baking soda, or anything else intended to make it shine. Cleaning can scratch the surface and reduce collector value. Natural tunning can produce brown, gray, gold, reddish, or other shades. An unusual color alone does not prove rarity. Environmental damage and artificial coloring are different matters. The safest approach is to preserve the coin exactly as you found it until someone knowledgeable can examine it. You should also understand the difference between an online asking price and a real market price. Anyone can post a 1965 quarter for $50,000, $100,000, or even $1 million. That number does not prove that the coin is worth that amount. Real market value is better judged through documented sales, professional grading, authentication, and comparable examples. The strongest evidence comes from what qualified buyers have actually paid for similar coins, not from an exaggerated listing designed to attract attention. The 1965 Washington quarter is therefore much more than an old 25-cent piece. It represents a major change in American coinage, from the traditional silver era into the copper-nickel clad era. If your coin is ordinary, it may simply be a piece of history worth face value. But if it has a genuine transitional error, exceptional condition, or another recognized rarity, the story can become much more interesting. So before you spend that old 1965 quarter, take one more look. Don't clean it, don't trust an exaggerated price tag, and don't assume the missing mint mark makes it rare. Check the details, verify the facts, and let the coin reveal what it really is. Second coin, 1967 Washington Quarter, no mint mark. Complete 10-minute script. Welcome back to Change Your Life. Today we are moving to the second coin in our journey through fascinating Washington quarters, and this one has a story that every American coin collector should know. We are talking about the 1967 Washington Quarter with no mint mark. It may look ordinary. It may be dirty, scratched, dark, dull, or even have an unusual golden or reddish color. But this coin was produced during one of the most dramatic transitions in United States coinage history. So could your 1967 quarter really be worth thousands of dollars? Could one exceptional example become a major collector prize? Stay with me, because the truth is much more interesting than the exaggerated million-dollar claims you may see online. The first thing you need to understand is that 1967 was not a normal year for American quarters. The United States was dealing with a major coin shortage, and the government was also facing the rising importance and cost of silver. Before 1965, Washington quarters were made from a silver and copper alloy, but beginning in 1965, the mint changed the quarter to a copper-nickel-clad composition. The United States Mint confirms that silver was removed from circulating quarters in 1965. That makes the 1967 quarter especially fascinating. It belongs to the early years of the new clad era, when Americans were still seeing huge numbers of older silver coins mixed into circulation with the new copper-nickel pieces. The government was working hard to produce enough new clad coins, and the transition was not something that happened overnight. In fact, the mint was producing enormous quantities of clad coinage to stabilize the nation's circulating money. Now let's talk about the missing mint mark, because this is where many coin owners become confused. You may look at your 1967 Washington quarter and notice that there is no small letter such as D or S. You might immediately think, this must be a rare Philadelphia coin, but there is an important historical explanation. During the coin shortage, mint marks were temporarily removed from U.S. coins. The mint later announced that mint marks would return with 1968 dated coins, so a 1967 quarter without a mint mark is actually normal. The missing letter by itself does not make the coin a rare error. This is one of the most important facts to remember if you are checking your collection. The date is interesting, the history is fascinating, but rarity requires something more. And here is where the story gets exciting. The 1967 Washington quarter had a massive production run. PCGS records a mintage of approximately 1.52 billion pieces, meaning this is not a coin that is automatically rare simply because of its date. Because so many were produced, ordinary circulated examples are generally not worth anything close to thousands or millions of dollars. But collectors don't look only at the date. They look at condition, strike quality, surface preservation, errors, varieties, and overall desirability. A quarter that spent decades rolling around in pockets, cash registers, drawers, and jars can have scratches, dents, worn details, and environmental damage. Another coin from exactly the same year can survive with remarkable surfaces and sharp details. Those two coins may have dramatically different collector values. This is why your dirty 1967 quarter should not immediately be thrown away. Dirt does not automatically mean rarity, but it also does not automatically mean the coin is worthless. If you discover an unusual-looking example, the safest thing to do is leave it alone. Do not polish it, do not scrub it, do not use chemicals, do not try to make it shiny. Cleaning can leave permanent marks and may reduce the coin's appeal to collectors. Now let's address the biggest question. Is a 1967 Washington quarter worth millions of dollars today? The honest answer is that you should be extremely skeptical of claims that a normal 1967 no mint mark quarter is worth millions. There is no reason to believe that every 1967 quarter suddenly became a $1 million coin. In fact, the huge mintage tells us exactly why ordinary examples are common. However, exceptional coins can be a completely different story. PCGS records auction results for high-grade 1967 Washington quarters reaching thousands of dollars, including a reported result around $3,960 for an exceptional certified example. That is a real reminder that condition can transform an ordinary-looking coin into a serious collectible. But remember, a record price for an exceptional certified coin does not mean your circulated quarter is automatically worth the same amount. There is another important mystery surrounding the word silver. Many people see a 1967 quarter with a bright silver-colored appearance and immediately assume it is made of silver. That conclusion can be dangerous. Color alone cannot prove composition. Lighting, tunning, wear, environmental exposure, and surface treatments can all change the appearance of a coin, If you believe your 1967 quarter might be something unusual, examine the edge carefully. Look at the center line of the coin and compare its weight with a known normal example. A modern-style clad quarter has a copper core surrounded by a copper-nickel outer layer. The US Mint lists the standard clad quarter composition as 8.33% nickel with the balance copper and a weight of 5.67 grams. A suspected error should never be judged by appearance alone, however. Proper authentication is essential, and this brings us to one of the most important lessons for every coin hunter. The date and missing mint mark are only the beginning of the investigation. If your 1967 quarter has an unusual error, an abnormal weight, a wrong planchet, a dramatic striking problem, or exceptional preservation, that is when the coin becomes much more interesting. Genuine mint errors are different from damage that happened after the coin left the mint. Imagine finding a 1967 quarter in an old collection. It has dark tunning, a strange color, and worn surfaces. You might think it is worthless, but then you check the date. You inspect the edge, you weigh it, you compare the details. Suddenly, you realize the coin deserves professional examination. That is the kind of discovery that makes coin collecting so exciting, but don't let excitement turn into an unrealistic price expectation. A seller can put a quarter online for $1 million, $10 million, or any other number they choose. An asking price is not proof of market value. The strongest evidence comes from documented sales of comparable coins, reputable grading services, and knowledgeable collectors. The 1967 Washington quarter is valuable in another way too. It tells the story of America's monetary transition. The United States government was moving away from silver in circulating quarters and building a new clad coinage system. By 1967, the country was deep in that transformation. The mint was producing massive quantities of clad coins, while silver coins were being separated and withdrawn from circulation. A 1968 mint document described billions of mixed silver and clad coins being processed and separated. That historical background makes the 1967 quarter a fantastic coin to study, even when the individual example is worth only face value. It connects your collection to a period when American money was changing in response to economic and supply pressures. So what is your 1967 Washington quarter with no mint mark worth today? For a normal circulated example, usually not a fortune. Its value can be around face value, with higher prices possible for better condition examples or recognized varieties and errors. Exceptional certified coins can reach much higher levels, with documented examples showing that thousands of dollars are possible for outstanding pieces. And that is the real secret behind this coin. It is not the missing mint mark alone. It is not the fact that the coin is old. It is not simply the color, dirt, or scratches. The real question is what makes your individual coin different from the millions of others produced in 1967. So before you spend that old quarter, take another look. Check the date, check the surfaces, inspect the edge, look for unusual characteristics. Never clean it just to make it shine, and never believe $1 million claim without strong evidence. Your 1967 Washington quarter may not make you a billionaire overnight, but if it contains a genuine rarity, an important error, or exceptional preservation, it could be far more interesting than the 25 cents printed on its face. And remember, the greatest treasure in coin collecting is not always the coin with the biggest headline. Sometimes, it is the history hidden inside an ordinary-looking piece of American money. The 1967 Washington quarter is one of those coins, a small piece of metal that captures a huge turning point in the story of United States coinage. Tired and Fannel coin 1968 Washington quarter, no mint mark, complete 10-minute script. Welcome back to Change Your Life. Today we have reached the final and perhaps most fascinating coin in our three-coin journey, and this time we are looking at the 1968 Washington quarter with no mint mark. At first glance, this quarter may look completely ordinary. It might be dirty, scratched, dark, dull, or covered with unusual golden, brown, or reddish tunning. But 1968 was an important year in American coin history, and this little quarter carries a story that goes far beyond its 25-cent face value. Could your 1968 quarter be worth hundreds, thousands, or even more? Before you make any decision about an old coin sitting in a jar or collection, let us discover exactly what makes this date interesting. The first thing you need to know is that the 1968 Washington quarter is not a silver quarter simply because it looks silver. Regular circulation Washington quarters dated 1965 and later were made from copper-nickel clad metal rather than the traditional 90% silver composition used through 1964. That means a normal 1968 quarter is a clad coin, not a regular silver Washington quarter. This is one of the most important facts to understand before believing any claim that every 1968 quarter is a valuable silver coin. But now comes the interesting part. 1968 was a major transition year for mint marks. During the earlier part of the clad transition, mint marks were temporarily removed from circulating coins. In 1968, mint marks returned, and the position changed as well. PCGS notes that the mint mark was moved to the obverse of the Washington quarter, to the right of Washington's hair ribbon. So if you have a 1968 Washington quarter and you cannot find a mint mark, don't immediately assume you have discovered an ultra-rare coin. The first question is not simply, where is the mint mark? The question is, what kind of 1968 quarter is this, and what characteristics does it actually have? A normal 1968 Philadelphia quarter can legitimately have no mint mark. The absence of a mint mark by itself is not enough to make it a $1 million rarity. And this is where the story becomes exciting for collectors. The 1968 Philadelphia Washington quarter had a large production and is considered readily available in ordinary circulated condition. PCGS lists the regular 1968 issue as a common coin overall, with millions surviving in various grades. That means a heavily circulated quarter with scratches, worn details, and environmental damage is generally not going to command an enormous price simply because it says 1968. However, condition can completely change the conversation. Imagine two 1968 quarters sitting side by side. One has been carried in pockets for decades, with scratches across Washington's portrait and worn lettering. The other has sharp details, beautiful original surfaces, and almost no evidence of circulation. They may have the exact same date, but collectors can view them very differently. This is why professional grading becomes so important at the highest levels of the market. PCGS currently lists substantial price differences as the grade rises. Its price guide shows ordinary low-grade examples near face value, while very high-grade 1968 quarters can command hundreds or even thousands of dollars. And there is an extraordinary documented auction result that demonstrates just how far a truly exceptional coin can go. PCGS records a $9,400 auction record for a 1968 Washington quarter, graded MS68, sold by Heritage Auctions in September 2013. Now stop for a moment and think about what that really means. It does not mean every 1968 quarter is worth $9,400. It does not mean a dirty quarter from your pocket is secretly worth thousands. It means that an exceptionally preserved, professionally certified example can occupy an entirely different level of the market. That distinction is incredibly important when researching coins. What about the claim that a 1968 Washington quarter could be worth millions of dollars? You should be extremely careful with that kind of headline. A coin can be advertised online for almost any amount, but an asking price is not the same as a confirmed market value. A genuine market price is supported by actual sales, professional authentication, grading, rarity, and collector demand. For a normal 1968 no-mint mark quarter, there is no reason to assume $1 million value. But that does not mean you should ignore your coin. Errors and unusual minting characteristics are where the real investigation begins. A genuine wrong planchet, dramatic striking error, major doubled feature, or other authenticated mint error can make a coin much more interesting. The key word is genuine. Damage that happens after the coin leaves the mint is not the same as a manufacturing error. This is especially important when someone discovers a 1968 quarter that looks strange. Maybe the edge looks unusual. Maybe the coin appears too light. Maybe the color seems completely different from another quarter. Maybe the design appears doubled. These observations can be clues, but they are not proof. A coin can become discolored through environmental exposure, chemical reactions, cleaning, heat, or other causes. A scratch can look like an error. Machine damage can sometimes resemble doubling. That is why serious collectors compare the coin carefully and, when appropriate, use professional authentication. Now let's talk about the dirty condition that many people mention when they find old coins. Dirt does not automatically increase value. In fact, harsh cleaning can hurt a coin. If you discover a 1968 quarter that looks dark, brown, grey, golden, reddish, or unusually toned, resist the temptation to polish it. Never scrub it with household chemicals just to make it shine. Original surfaces can be important to collectors, and artificial cleaning can leave permanent marks. Another fascinating point is that 1968 was not only about regular circulation strikes. There were also special proof issues associated with the San Francisco Mint. Those coins are a different category and can have different values. PCGS records auction results for high-grade 1968 S-proof Washington quarters as well, showing that special issues and exceptional condition can create very different markets from an ordinary Philadelphia circulation strike. So when you pick up your 1968 quarter, look carefully at the obverse, especially the area near Washington's hair ribbon. Remember that 1968 is important because the mint mark location changed. Do not confuse the absence of a mint mark with a guaranteed error. Instead, examine the entire coin. Look at the date, lettering, portrait, rim, edge, surfaces, strike, and overall condition. The edge can also tell you something about the coin's construction. A normal clad quarter has a copper core with a copper-nickel outer layer. If your coin looks dramatically different, weighing it accurately can provide another clue, but weight alone cannot authenticate a rare coin. A serious suspected error should be examined by a qualified professional. Now let's answer the question everyone is waiting for. What is a 1968 Washington quarter with no mint mark worth today? For an ordinary circulated example, the answer is generally close to face value. PCGS and other market references show that common examples are inexpensive, while high-grade specimens can become much more valuable. An exceptionally preserved certified coin can reach thousands, as demonstrated by the documented $9,400 auction record for an MS-68 example. That means your old 1968 quarter should not be judged by a sensational headline. Its real value depends on what you actually have. If it is worn and ordinary, it may simply be a piece of American history worth around its face value. If it is unusually well preserved, its collector value can rise. If it contains a genuine major mint error or another recognized rarity, the story could become much more exciting. And there is something beautiful about that. The 1968 Washington quarter represents an important period when the United States was adapting its coinage system after the end of circulating silver quarters. It was part of a new clad era, while the mint was also returning mint marks to US coinage and changing their location. So before you throw that old quarter into a spending pile, stop and look again. Don't clean it, don't polish it, don't believe an outrageous $1 million claim without evidence. Check the mint mark area, examine the edge, look closely at the surfaces, and compare the coin with reliable examples. If something genuinely unusual stands out, professional authentication may be worth considering. The biggest lesson from the 1968 Washington quarter is simple. The date alone does not create a fortune. The missing mint mark alone does not create a fortune. Color alone does not create a fortune. What matters is rarity, condition, authenticity, minting characteristics, and real collector demand. So could a 1968 Washington quarter be worth more than 25 cents? Absolutely. Could an exceptional certified example reach thousands? The documented auction record proves that it can. But should you believe that every 1968 no mint mark quarter is worth millions? Absolutely not. And that is what makes coin collecting so exciting. A coin that looks completely ordinary can make you stop, investigate, and discover a piece of American history hiding in plain sight. Your 1968 Washington quarter may not make you a billionaire overnight, but it could still tell an incredible story. And if you happen to find a truly exceptional example, that story could become much more valuable.